That Meghan has been going to a few parties recently without Harry, and he's been at home, and so
Harry is so much better on his own, and the evidence appears to keep adding up. Louise, is there more than...
The digital world was so important to us is because my wife in 2018 was the most trolled person in the world. There was a...
Meghan Markle has been attending private parties without Harry. Rumors of Billionaire rendezvous are swirling, and behind the scenes, she's quietly making moves that insiders say could end everything. The Duchess, who once captivated the world with her royal love story, is now being whispered about in elite Hollywood circles, and not as Harry's wife.
Harry's people, that he's got a couple of rooms somewhere in Montecito where he can go to and have a bit of quiet time away from Meghan and the children. One of them is supposed to be a bungalow.
As Montecito neighbors gossip and A-listers keep their distance, Meghan is reportedly hunting for her next power play, alone. Harry, meanwhile, is retreating into the shadows, looking more like a placeholder than a partner. Their empire is shrinking. Projects are failing, and the dream they sold to the world, cracking under pressure. Meghan's fairy tale isn't just falling apart, it's being rewritten. And if what insiders are saying is true, the next chapter won't include Harry at all. This isn't a royal love story anymore. It's a slow, calculated exit, and no one is ready for what's coming next.
It does make me wonder because all signs point to some issues behind the scenes. I mean, professionally, they've had to separate. Their brand was toxic. They were practically
complex where he can go to and then relax after. There is also suggestions that Meghan has been going to...
The cameras captured every shimmering detail, but the way Prince Harry's eyes never left his bride as she approached the altar. Meghan Markle had traded Hollywood sets for Windsor Castle, and the world held its breath in collective wonder. Here was the stuff of dreams made manifest. An American actress becoming a real-life princess, her mixed heritage heralded as proof that even the most traditional institutions could evolve.
And the UK as well, so whether that travels into a separation for them, let's hope not, because there are two children at stake here, and they're both victims.
Without Harry, and he's been at home, what's going to happen about Harry and Meghan split rumors, but these rumors have been going around now. There is nothing of substance that I've been able to find.
The narrative was intoxicating. Meghan wasn't just joining the royal family, she was revolutionizing it. Here was the woman who would bridge continents and cultures, who would bring fresh air into chambers that had felt musty for centuries. The press painted her as a beacon of change, while Harry appeared to have found his salvation in her arms, finally free from the shadows that had haunted him since childhood. But fairy tales, as any storyteller knows, often mask darker truths. What Meghan discovered behind the palace walls wasn't the empowering platform she'd envisioned. Instead of creative freedom, there were scripts she couldn't rewrite. Instead of using her voice to champion causes, there were protocols that demanded her silence. The very institution that had publicly celebrated her arrival began to feel less like a welcoming embrace and more like an elegant straitjacket. She had expected to be a partner in shaping the monarchy's future. Instead, she found herself a player in someone else's centuries-old production. One where improvisation wasn't just discouraged, it was forbidden. For someone who had built her career on speaking truth and taking control of her narrative, the adjustment wasn't merely difficult. It was devastating. The world still saw the glossy magazine covers and carefully choreographed public appearances. But behind the ceremonial smiles, a different story was unfolding. One of a woman discovering that sometimes the most beautiful cages are the hardest to escape. And in the quiet moments between royal duties, Meghan began to understand that her greatest performance might not be playing a duchess, but finding the courage to write her own ending.
Live through it themselves, and they won't want that for Lilibet and Archie either. But moreover to that, I really find that I'm seeing Harry and Meghan much happier professionally working.
The World Privacy Tour didn't quite turn out the way that we thought that it would, but so why is he bringing this up now?
Yeah, so this was the Nexus conference. Now, if you think back to a couple of years ago...
The illusion didn't last long. Behind the palace gates, Meghan quickly realized that royalty wasn't about luxury. It was about obedience. Her days were tightly controlled, her words filtered through layers of approval, her image shaped by a machine older than any Hollywood studio. She wasn't just part of the royal family. She was a product of it. And for a woman who had built her career on independence, that was suffocating. What Meghan thought would be a life of empowerment turned out to be a gilded cage. Every move she made sparked backlash. Tabloids turned her confidence into arrogance, her ambition into manipulation. Headlines labeled her Duchess difficult. Staff began resigning. Stories leaked. And the media, already vicious, went in for the kill. Harry tried to shield her, but he was already emotionally frayed, haunted by his mother's fate, distrustful of the press, torn between loyalty to his wife and the only life he'd ever known. Frogmore Cottage became their retreat, but it didn't stop the firestorm. It only confirmed that the cracks were real and growing. The institution didn't protect her. It isolated her. And Meghan, once so sure she was stepping into a new kind of power, was starting to see the truth. Royal life wasn't about being heard. It was about knowing your place. And for Meghan, staying silent was never an option. Deep inside, the exit plan was beginning to take. When Meghan and Harry left royal life behind, they didn't just walk away from the crown. They walked straight into the spotlight. This time on their own terms. Or so they thought. The world waited to see what the Sussexes would build. Multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix and Spotify made headlines. It looked like a masterstroke. Royal rebels turned media moguls. But what followed was far from the power play they promised. The projects weren't hits. They were flops. Their Netflix docuseries stirred controversy, but quickly fizzled. Meghan's Spotify podcast was axed after just one season. Critics called it out of touch, scripted, and self-indulgent. Even insiders at Spotify publicly mocked the show, suggesting they were grifting royals who didn't deliver. It was brutal. Then came the infamous pineapple clip. Meghan slicing fruit like it was a revelation. It went viral, but not in the way she hoped. Social media lit up with ridicule. Memes exploded. Even supporters began to cringe.
Beautiful pictures of Harry in Vancouver. The big smile, he's so engaged, and Arthur Edwards, of course, who's followed him, made the point that he was really seeing the Harry of old. And it's been wonderful to see that. So,
and I feel like we have said that a number of times over the year, where we have seen him at
in New York, it would be sort of like front page headlines, but he does so many of these conferences and appearances now. It sort of seeps in.
Behind the scenes, producers whispered about unused footage, dull content, and storylines that lacked substance. Hollywood had rolled out the red carpet, but now it was pulling it back. The Meghan and Harry brand had become radioactive. Not glamorous, not groundbreaking, just disappointing. What was once marketed as finding freedom began to look like losing relevance. The world wasn't inspired anymore, it was bored. And in a town where buzz is everything, silence is deadly. Meghan could feel it. The empire they were building wasn't rising. It was crumbling. Hollywood doesn't forget, but it does move on. And for Meghan Markle, that reality hit hard. In the beginning, she was everywhere. Oprah interviews, magazine covers, paparazzi at every corner of Montecito. Meghan had positioned herself as a new kind of icon, royal, rebellious, and relatable. But as time passed and projects flopped, the invites began to dry up. The A-listers who once circled her like moths to a flame began keeping their distance. Whispers spread through Beverly Hills dinner parties. Meghan was too calculated, too performative. Some said she treated every conversation like a brand deal. Others admitted they just didn't know who the real Meghan was anymore. Behind closed doors, the term social liability began making rounds. She tried to pivot. Rebranding efforts, luxury partnerships, wellness ventures. Anything to stay in the conversation. But Hollywood, brutal in its silence, wasn't biting. The public had grown weary. The media had moved on. And worse, the glamour had worn off. Meghan was no longer seen as the bold royal trailblazer. She was just another celebrity chasing relevance. And Harry? He was disappearing from the narrative. Rare appearances. Nervous energy. Like a man caught between two worlds, neither of which fully embraced him anymore. Desperation replaced dominance. Meghan, once the center of every camera lens, was now orchestrating her own visibility. One curated photo op, one staged moment at a time. But the more she tried to reclaim the spotlight, the more obvious it became. She wasn't being celebrated anymore. She was being tolerated.
Becoming a regular thing for him because they have to be financially independent. Of course, I'm not privy to how much he got paid to speak if he got paid.
It just seems to be, a bit lighter and like he's having a bit more fun. It looks like, too, that this professional...
She started showing up alone. High-end charity galas, women's empowerment summits, fashion events tucked deep into Beverly Hills. Meghan began making appearances without Harry by her side. At first, it seemed innocent, a busy couple managing different schedules. But insiders whispered that it wasn't logistics, it was strategy. While Harry stayed back, Meghan worked the rooms, shaking hands, making connections, rebuilding her image. Alone. These weren't red carpets they walked together anymore. Meghan was networking solo, and not just for social currency. She was rebranding as an individual voice, a powerful woman untethered from royal baggage or a fading husband's name. The Duchess title still sparkled on the surface, but behind it, a very intentional distance. And Harry? He became a ghost in his own story. Reports of strained friendships, growing tension with Meghan's inner circle, and visible discomfort during rare public appearances painted a man lost in transition. The Montecito mansion felt less like a family home and more like separate headquarters. Even at events they did attend together, the body language spoke louder than the press releases. Meghan looked polished, poised, camera-ready. Harry looked distracted, isolated, often a step behind. The man who once broke away from the monarchy to protect the woman he loved was now being eclipsed by her ambition. Friends say he misses his old life. The military camaraderie, the Invictus Games, the causes that once gave him purpose. Now he's a side note, a plus one. And Meghan? She's
goes to show sort of like the prevalence of them really now taking part of headlines. And of course, as you said, privacy is so important.
That's right. So Harry is one of the things he absolutely for children who have lost their parents through warfare. Of course, he has lost a mother. So there's great resonance with this charity. And what he's done is he's put an invitation out.
Behind Montecito's manicured hedges and $14 million mansions, whispers travel faster than Teslas. And in this ultra-exclusive enclave of celebrities, billionaires, and old money, Meghan and Harry's presence once sparked fascination. Now, it's fatigue. At first, the locals welcomed them. A royal couple settling into their quiet California paradise. How exciting. But then came the sirens, the security convoys, the drones chasing glimpses through their gated estate. And the endless drama. It wasn't long before Montecito's elite began murmuring what the tabloids couldn't quite print. Meghan and Harry brought the circus with them. "I didn't move here to live next to a reality show," one neighbor reportedly quipped. Another complained that their peaceful hilltop neighborhood had turned into a media hotspot for disappointment. Harsh, maybe, but not surprising.
The families involved with that charity to jump on a Zoom call with him, and they can ask him questions about Christmas time and what it's like for a prince involved in that. And to Louise's point about the separation, this is an opportunity where they could actually come together. It's completely innocuous. It's not just going to pop up in the background at least, and I don't know, hold up one of the kids or show what they've got.
Story here.
Well, yes, and she's been dubbed Meghan Markle because the
Sussexes had promised privacy, a life away from the flashing cameras and chaos. But their actions painted a different picture. Press releases, photo shoots, surprise paparazzi leaks. Locals began questioning whether the drama was ever meant to stop, or if it had simply changed addresses. Inside their sprawling estate, tensions weren't just rumored, they were felt. Staff turnover became frequent. Insiders leaked stories of cold atmospheres and changing moods. Montecito wasn't their peaceful retreat. It was a pressure cooker. The storybook mansion, once a symbol of escape, now feels more like a fortress of discontent. And beyond those high hedges, their neighbors are no longer starstruck. They're just tired.
To show them as a couple, as a family together, because they're talking directly to families. I also think this show has always known, which is service. It's what he does best. He grew up learning to serve. It's how he's
Part of the reasons as to why they have committed suicide is online trolling and social media. So that is what he is trying to link back to, which of course is an extremely important cause. But
it was meant to be her comeback. Netflix had offered Meghan a golden opportunity. A second season of With Love, Meghan, a lifestyle series crafted to showcase her authentic voice. But behind the scenes, the reviews were already in, and they weren't good. Executives had grown impatient. The first season's numbers were underwhelming. Critics slammed it as shallow, overly polished, and lacking substance. Even internally, Netflix staff questioned whether the show was a vanity project disguised as content. Behind closed doors, terms like unwatchable and tone-deaf were whispered. Then came the death blow. Season 2 was canceled. No warning, no soft exit, just a corporate cold shoulder. The decision sent shockwaves through Meghan's camp. After all, this wasn't just another show. It was supposed to rebrand her, elevate her beyond the royal escapee label. Instead, it confirmed the worst. Meghan's star wasn't rising. It was
trolled, and that is good. We are saying Meghan got trolled, and that is bad, and it should never have happened. But this was, in linking back to this, then I sort of think it sort of takes away from the really important matter at hand and the important topic, which is to deal with the loss of their child from social media.
Absolutely.
So I think he really needs to think about how he is communicating that message, ending up for those families, and really ensuring that that cause hits the headlines, not Meghan being trolled, which we have heard about many, many times before.
Now, Louise, still with Meghan and onto her releasing more products under her As Ever label, there's been...
And Hollywood noticed. Offers slowed. Brands backed away. Meghan's publicists scrambled to shift the narrative. But even damage control couldn't spin this one. The once glamorous duchess had become a cautionary tale in entertainment circles. A reminder that fame without public trust is a losing game. Meanwhile, Harry watched from the sidelines. Detached. Helpless. His own projects, including Invictus, began suffering from the surrounding noise. Their brand was collapsing under its own weight. Netflix was never just a platform. It was the final bet.